Hello everybody and welcome to another Saturday night with me, Peter Driver, here at Biscari Fly. I hope everybody's keeping well. I hope everyone had a good week. How you doing, Graham Lanigan? John Johnson there. Good stuff, John. Brian Kennedy's on there with us. Kieran Sherlock, how you doing? Seamus. Patrick Burke, good evening yourself. Kevin Maher, Colette, how you doing, Colette? Patrick McCarthy, Dennis Goulding. I hope everybody's keeping well and everyone's having a good week. How you doing, Graham Lanigan? I hope everyone's having a good week and had a good week. Got out and broke the duck on the 2023 season. Hi, John O'Riordan, Ken Tuberty on there, Nigel's on from Wales. How you doing, Peter Wadding? Over there in County Wexford. Hope everyone's had a good week. Got out on the river this week. Got down to one of the tributaries of Blackwater with Dave there during the week. I managed to get a few trout, get the season off to a start. So great to get out on the rivers. Rivers were low, conditions were fantastic. A little bit of upstream nymphing, and got a couple of trout there. How you doing, James Kavanagh? Good to have you on. It's good to have everyone on us tonight, folks. Hope everyone's keeping well and enjoying their weekend so far. So tonight's about bass. Tonight's all about bass flies, bass fly fishing. If you ever aspire to do a bit of bass fishing, you know, I've been bass fishing for quite a long number of years. Grew up in Wicklow. How you doing, Andrew? Dylan Roberts there from the Welsh Tea, Jim Myler, Paul Burke, Anthony Bolton. Good to have you on there. I was grew up in Wicklow. Got to, living near the coast. Got to do a lot of how you doing, Alan. Yes, absolutely, Dennis. Congratulations to Sean Maher. Sean Maher won AWOL last week, so Sean, the champion of AWOL. Well done, Sean. Give him a buzz there during the week. Congratulate him. How you doing, Glyn? So great for Sean to win that. It's a fantastic tournament. Dennis, you were second. Congratulations, I think. Am I right? How you doing, David? Adrian Codd, how you doing? But anyway, so bass fishing is something I grew up with. I did quite a lot of bass fishing in my time. Spin fishing, bait fishing, and fly fishing more in recent years. At the moment, living in Kilkenny, the kind of Copper Coast and the South Wexford beaches are my haunts during the summer months, and yeah, it's fantastic fishing. If anyone ever aspired to do a bit, you really should try and get out and do a bit. It's not as complex as somebody think. Yes, you got to get the tides right, you got to find your marks and things like that, but it is fantastic fishing. Fly fishing for bass there on a summer's evening, wading along a few beaches or shores or estuaries, and you get that magic take. How you, Robbie Berry? You get that magic hit off a bass, or you see a good follow and then an attack on one of your flies. It's just electric fishing, and it's free, so it's amazing. Not more people out there bass fishing. The setups and all that. We'll go through the setups and all later on. We're going to try a couple of my favourite bass flies tonight. How you doing, everyone? By the way, from YouTube. How you doing, John? Good stuff up to Kilkenny Cats, yeah. So, hi to everyone on YouTube. The video will be up on YouTube tomorrow, folks. And don't forget, if you hit that share button, folks, or comment on the stream, you'll be in for winning some bass flies tonight. And I've also tied quite a few bass flies today. Had to brush up on a few skills, so I've done a few different bass flies that we're going to be tying tonight. I've already done them. They'll be going out to the winner along with what we tie tonight as well. We got 3 good bass flies for tonight. We're going to do some sand eel patterns, flat wings and stuff like that. Really important to have when you're going after bass. Looking at colour combinations, different materials for different effects when we're tying bass flies. All right, how you doing, Jimmy? We're going to look at some different materials for tying bass flies and stuff like those, flat wings and things like that. And we're going to do one of my favourite flies of all, which is the gurgler. Okay, I love fishing the gurglers. It's surface action, it's popper action. If you get the bass chasing at all and you're on gurglers, it is just electric when the smash happens on the surface. It's very visible and brilliant. How you doing, Desmond Paul? Good to have you on, Mr. Dave will be along with his trivia quiz, of course, later on in the show. And we'll have the one and only Mr. Jason O'Riordan from Game Fishing Ireland will be on later on. Had a bit of a chat with Down and actually met up with Jason there during the summer months. Done a couple of sessions with him on the bass down around Dungarvan, and we had a little bit of a chat about some gear, tactics and all that kind of stuff. So very interesting interview coming up later on with Jason. Don't miss that one. So we're going to kick off anyway. The desk is already in a mess before I start. The one thing about tying bass flies and pike flies, there is stuff everywhere. The materials are quite messy and stuff like that. Not like tying a few little nymphs and a few little dries. But so I have gear all over the place. But anyway, I'll try and sort it out as best I can for you. So we're going to start off with a little kind of craft for sort of synthetic for flat wing minnow, okay, sand eel kind of pattern, or it can be you can tie them as a sand eel. Depends on your colour combination. Good man, John. How you doing, Sean? Hi, Frankie. It depends on your colour combinations what you want to imitate. Now, if you're tying bass flies, if you imitate sand eel pattern, mackerel fry, mullet fry, you'll never go too far wrong. And if you look at the colour combination, just Google those saltwater fry or saltwater bait fry, and stick to those. He surely was, Alan. He surely was. How you doing, Graham? Graham Reggie Reynolds from Sweden as well. How you doing, Graham? And Kenneth Raleigh's on there as well. You're very welcome. Kenneth won a prize last week, flies, stuff like that. So well done, Kenneth. But once you stick to those kind of colour combinations, the profiles of all that, and keep it really simple, you'll never go too far wrong. So you're talking about blues, silver, greys, a bit of red, a bit of chartreuse here and there. Some of the ones there, like this is similar to what we're going to be tying now in a minute, but just with a different colour combination. Very simple little pattern, little bait fry. It's just working your resin right, getting your eyes, getting your proportions right, get the tail, and that's a really good little bass fly. You can see we've that lateral strike coming through the middle of that body. I'm going to show you about that. That's very important to have. But they're not really that complicated, and sticking to good colour combinations, they're quite easy, and they're super effective. Bass are very, very, very aggressive. If you get them feeding, if you can manage to find some feeding bass, like, they will hit it, like, they will hit it. So and it's electric fishing. We'll talk about the setups and all that when we go on to Jason. If anyone has any questions, by the way, folks, do shoot them across in the comment section. I'll get to as many as I can, and we'll see how we go for as long as we can. Now, hook wise, always using saltwater, stuff like that. Now, I have to thank Sean Cassidy. I went to the box yesterday, kind of a box there for kind of pike hooks and saltwater hooks and stuff like that. And I do a fair bit of saltwater tying for myself and stuff like that. Not so much commercially. I don't have enough. I'm in enough trouble with nymphs and dries and lake flies and all that stuff without commercially pushing saltwater flies as well. But I do a few, and I went to the box yesterday looking to pull out the saltwater flies, and I had no bloody sand eel flies like this particular hook here. How you doing, Eugene? So I made a few calls, talking to Mark, and I said, give Sean Cassidy a ring. He's up in Goresbridge at the moment. Anyway, Sean, thanks a million for the lend of the hooks. I had to race up to Sean and get a few hooks off Sean today. So brilliant. How you doing, Wayne Murphy? So in here we got an Osprey size 4 saltwater hook. Okay, really good strong hook, really nice shape on it, lovely size for doing a nice little sand eel or kind of fry pattern, or flat wing. I'm going to put on my Kevlar. Okay, Kevlar is great for tying this style of fly. One, because it's super strong. You can really get tight wraps and tie down materials really, really tight. And plus, it's virtually indestructible. So, your fly has a great strength. Has great strength to it, okay? We're going to tie that in there first and take off our waist. Now, we're going to put in our tail. Okay, so this particular fly we're going to tie with all synthetic materials, craft furs, streamer hair, all that kind of synthetic stuff. Okay, the next one we're going to do then, we're going to move on to some natural furs and feathers. Now, when it comes to synthetics, I say we're using craft furs. So you can see you got a ton of different colours of craft furs. You can pick them up at fly tying shops, some decent upholstery shops and places like that. You might be able to pick up bits, art and crafts and stuff like that as well. How you doing, Aaron? Mark Joyce is on there as well. Wayne Murphy, good to have you all on there with us, folks. Craft furs, lots of colours, so lots of different colour combinations. We then got streamer hair, which I find is quite good, and it's not far off, craft fibre, stuff like that. There's different colour streamer hairs there as well. You can get them in quite a lot of selections, and these are all very good materials to tie the kind of using for tying in, using synthetics for doing these kinds of flies. So I'm going to take a little bit of this white streamer hair here first, okay? Now, working with this stuff can be a bit awkward at the start, okay? So because you can see it's quite long and straggly and it's a bit all over the place, okay? So what I normally do is take out a section like that, I'll fold it in half and I'll cut it, and then I'll take the two cut ends, hold them like so, and then what I'll do is what I call strip stacking, okay? So I'll strip out, stack it back, strip out, stack it back, okay? And that's just basically getting a nice decent little piece of material that has a bit of body in it in this section and tapers out nice and naturally, okay? Now, if the taper is a bit too long like it is in that one, what I'll often do is just get the scissors and just using the bare angle of the bare angle of the scissors, I will just take away some of those longer fibres that might be a bit awkward, stroking it out, making sure I'm happy with that, roughly around that size. Excuse me. Hi Andy, Mark Joyce is on there as well. Hope everyone's keeping well. Now, okay, so to get that lateral line coming through this fly, our hook shank will take care of that once we get up to the fly, but we need that coming, so just trimmed off a bit of the waist end there just to make it a bit more controllable, alright? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a hair straightener. So I'm going to turn on a hair straightener. Now, you can use hair straighteners for a lot of materials. How you doing, Wayne? For a lot of materials like bucktail and stuff like that, and it helps to straighten the bucktail and makes things a little bit softer and much more pliable. When we're doing it with synthetics, you got to be very careful. If you let that hair straightener straighten up, heat up, should I say, it will melt it. Okay, so I normally turn it on, and I will start working that hair. Just for the tail, I need this to get this as straight as possible, so it'll come as tight as possible together to create that lateral line down that fly. Okay, so what I'll do is just before it heats up too hot, I'll start straightening, and in a moment it will straighten out beautiful and all come together nice. But if it gets too hot, it'll melt. Okay, so if you turn it on and leave it there heating up, and next thing you stick it into it when it's fully hot, it will melt. Now it won't do it to obviously bucktail and stuff like that. Bucktail, I'll leave it on there and I kind of just heat my bucktail. But with the streamer hair or the craft fur, you've got to be just a little bit careful, okay, with your temperatures. So once I'm happy, that's coming together nicely now. As you can see, getting nice and straight and really coming together in a nice body. Absolutely, John, absolutely. But don't go too far because you will melt it. Alright, so there it is, perfect now, lovely and straight. And you see I've really got a nice body to that, for that tail. Less is more all the time when you're doing these kind of streamers, folks. Okay? Less is more. So I'm going to add that in there. We're going to go at least 2 times. At least 2 times the length of the body. Okay? In the tail. Wrong. And we're going to attach it in backwards. The first piece of the tail goes in backwards, okay? So make sure you've got your position. Check your position. And then wrap it in backwards. Directly on top. Pinch and pull down. And bring your thread down along a little bit. Hang on, that's actually a little bit too far up the hook. There we go. And get that secured in well. And of course with the Kevlar, so the great thing about this Kevlar is you can really put a lot of pressure on there. How you doing, Sharon? Shane Bird was there in third. Hubert Longest Fish. You're very welcome, Dennis. Going to take away that little bit of waste there. A couple of more turns there just to trap that in. And then I'm going to fold that over. It does 2 things. One, it gives great strength to that tail as regards if we get a lot of hitting and pulling, which these flies are going to get destroyed by bass. Okay, so they need to have great strength in their build. Secondly, it kind of keeps it, as you can see, it gives a lovely support by doubling over like that. An awful common problem with some bass lures is that, you know, that tail will get wrapped around your hook and stuff, your barb and stuff like that. So by doubling over, it does help give it a little kick. And you can see once it is very, very soft now. But once I give it a little bit of a straighten with the yoke, see how straight we can get that lovely soft fibres and create that lovely profile. That's going to be our lateral line going through our bait fry. Okay? How you doing, Martin? That's going to be our lateral line going through our bait fry. Okay, now I'm going to take 2 strands of this UV pearl flesh. Again, you know, colour combinations are, you know, there's days I love fishing this particular one. I do like fishing this particular one. 2 little strands, and we're just going to add them in there. And then we're just going to double them over. And that's all it needs. And come back up onto that. I'd often keep wet and just keep everything nice and locking in there together. Now, okay, I'm going to have to try and work this desk as I go along here because there is a lot of stuff here for 3 bass flies. Now, we're going to add in some light bright ultraviolet dubbing, okay, as the first part of a body. We kind of have 3 stages to this fly. To adding in the wings and stuff, okay. A little bit of light bright. And we're going to add in the first. I'm kind of been debating all even what colour combinations will I do, and you know, you seen the picture, the one I showed there, the yellow one. There's a lovely colour combination. I've done alright in that one. This will probably be one of the better ones. Most success on this particular pattern there as well. So I'm going to start building up. And I'd often run back over that with my Kevlar. Really getting it all quietly tightened in, packed in. Best times of the year for bass are kind of in around, I always, you know, my favourite time to go after bass is the last week in August, first week in September. That's my favourite time. If you get the right weather conditions, any time of the year you can get bass really on the Irish coastline, especially on the east coast of Ireland, along the Copper Coast, down as far as Dungarvan, back up as far as Tramore, you know, and then above Tramore you go on up into Rosslare, into Wexford, North Wexford beaches, you know, South Wexford beaches. I do a lot up around Cortown and place like that. So I've came a little bit up over halfway there with that that body, okay? And now we're going to add in some, just seeing what we add in next there now. We're going to add in another little bit of craft, or a little bit of the white. So once again, we're going to go through that process again. And we're going to take off a section, and we're going to split in half. And then we're going to do a strip stack it. So I take it out, strip it, line it up a good few tips, pull out the longer ones, move them back along in the stack, start rolling them together to see what sort of depth I have in that. Any unwanted very long ones, I just snip them off very quickly off either end. Now we're going to place them in on top. There's some really good bass guys out there, and some really good bass tyers, guys that are tying bass flies. What I'll do with this section now, instead of cutting that off, I will just fold that in half, split that, kind of separate it apart, and I will tuck it in underneath, so each side of it will go either side of the hook in underneath. Take it down, stroke it up in underneath, and then trap it in there. Any of those longer fibres we don't want, we'll just nick some of them off. But I don't even cut the scissors, I just rub the scissor along it. The kind of fibre gets caught in the V, and then it takes care of that. There we go. Start to put a little bit of body to our fly. No, it's not. It's a size 4 Osprey saltwater hook, Garrett. Okay, so once I've got that bit of a body in there, I'm just looking at the different stages on this one here now. We're going to add in our first piece of colour. Okay, so now we're going to add a bit of pink craft fur. This is by Sabaya. We've got some of this in the shop. Let's get more of it in. A little bit of Sabaya pink craft fur. Okay. Open it out. There's a ton on this. Ton of stuff on this. And it's already quite straight. We don't need to do any kind of work with this if we're looking for any kind of... always take off a nice chunk and cut it very low to the skin. If you don't, by the time you get halfway up your piece of craft fur, you'll find you're not able to get into the bottom of it. Catch the longer fibres and pull away some of the short stuff. Now if you want, you can keep some of that and tie smaller flies with and stuff. That's no problem. And we're going to place a bit of that pink in on top, letting the longest ends come right down as far as the tail, just in on top there. Take off that piece of waste. And I'm going to add another little piece of white in underneath. You got to balance everything out. Okay, so if we put something on top, we have to put something on the bottom. So once again, I'll take out another smaller piece of the white streamer fibre. Get that together. Turn the hook upside down. And get it in half. In a second now. Do a bit of strip stacking on that one. Just come down either side of the hook. We'll bring it all together now in a few moments. Either side of the hook. And just get that in there as well. Take off our waste. Make sure we get all those fibres back exactly where we want them. There's always going to be one or two that are kind of a bit longer once you start putting that little stretch on them, and I just nick them off as I go along. Helps keep that shape. Always working the body, massaging the back, getting everything exactly where it needs to be, keeping that nice profile. Thanks, Stuart. Absolutely, yeah, Jim, yeah. Yeah, I did, Graham. Absolutely. Yeah, I fished in O'Reilly Beach for a long time, for many years. I suppose the first 2 years of my bass kind of fishing, when I really decided I wanted to go after some bass, catch some bass, it was 99% blanks because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any great understanding of tide times. Going to add another little bit, a small bit of flash here, folks. Another 2 or 3 strands. I don't like over flashing some of these flies. Just 2 or 3 strands is enough. You don't need to go mad and build in a massive amount of flash. But I'd say the first 2 years of my bass fishing was just blank after blank after blank. Just wasn't getting it. And then once in a blue moon, you get a follow or something, and it just keep you going. So I just put in those 2 or 3 bits on top, and I'm folding these particular ones in underneath to have just a small bit of flash around, kind of on the circumference of this fly. Was an awful lot of blanks, and I spent an awful lot of time around in O'Reilly and Arklow and places like that, and not getting a lot of fish. And it wasn't until I started fishing further down Wexford and I met a few bass anglers, and they were good enough to, give me some advice and stuff like that, that I really got into. Kevin, I use my 10-foot 7 weight. You'll see it now in the video when we get onto the video. I use a 10-foot 7 weight. I don't go fancy for mad saltwater fly rods. Lucky enough, Syndicate Aquis range, their lake range, are also saltwater compatible. So you can have that. So I have syndicates for all my lake fishing, and they're also saltwater compatible. So all their components are saltwater friendly, and I can go down and I can fish saltwater with them, no problem. What I'm going to do now is lay this blue grizzle feather directly on top of this fly here, okay? So all I did was put it up, measure it. I stripped a little bit back till I get it long enough just to go back to the full length tail, and we're going to get it sit up on top. Okay, so we catch it up on top, hold it in, and we trap it in right up there. Couple of gentle turns and push it around. We want to make sure that's sitting flat on top. Okay. Take away your little bit of waste. And now I'll go to a little bit of Zappa Gap here. How you doing, Mark Fitzgerald? So I use the 10-foot 7 weights, to be quite honest with you, Kevin, and I've never had a problem casting my flies out where I need them to be. Now, most commonly it's between a 7. I'm going to put a little bit of Zappa Gap in there while I hold that feather in place. And it just helps to keep that feather sitting exactly perfect on top of that, flat on the fly. But I would, I'd use a 10-foot 7 weight, and then, how you doing, Mark? A 10-foot 7 weight, and I'm talking and I'm thinking here at the same time, folks. I'd use a 10-foot 7 weight and a just seeing what's the next. A 10-foot 7 weight and yep, that's all I use. But like between 10-foot 7s and sort of 9 weights is kind of where most guys are at when they're doing the bass fishing. You know, you got to chuck big flies. Now this fly is not a big fly. I'll show you some big flies for bass that I use. It'll be 3 times the length of this. Going to add another little piece of white here for my next stage before I move up into the head wing. But I'd use a it's for casting those big flies. Getting them out that distance, you know, the 9 weight and stuff like that is where you want to be if you're going to be chucking big stuff. Okay, another small little bit of that streamer fibre over the top and underneath. So I'm just building that fly up as I get up nearer the head. That's the main body of that fly, all I'll be putting into that. We'll get all that nice and brushed out now in a moment and get it nice and slim and sleek, exactly where we want it. Yeah, 9-foot 9 weight is a common rod, Christoph. Yeah, common rod for the bass. Now for my next piece of material here that I'm going to add in, I want a little bit of a kind of an olive topping on it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll take a small bit of streamer hair olive. Small bit. Don't need much, just a small bit. And I'm going to tie that in over the front of the eye. secure that in there, and just trim away any little bit of unwanted streamer fibre there. Then I'm going to take some more white, and I'm going to do the same underneath. Again, just cutting it in half, strip stacking it, making sure all those the depth I want. Give it a bit of a roll, and that'll give you an idea of kind of the body that you're going to have in that piece of material you're going to add in. Once we're happy with that, we'll just trim off the end we don't want. Turn your voice up. Flip over that fly. Get a rough idea of the length I want to put in there. And we'll tie that in there underneath. Trim away that bit of waste. Now we're going to take a little bit of sky blue. They can, John, absolutely, yeah, they can tangle up sometimes. Little bit of sky blue streamer here. They can tangle up quite a bit actually, yeah. Especially the gurgler. I find the gurgler, because I put such long tails on my gurglers, and because they're surface action, they do tend to ravel up quite a bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of the blue. And we're going to add that in on top as well. Let's get a rough idea how far I want that coming back on that. And then switch hands over. And I'm going to tie that in up there. Now before I finish that off, I'm going to take a little bit of Scary Fly Hotspot Dubbin. It's a real fluorescent fire orange. Small little bit. And I'm going to put that dubbin over that little bit of thread work. That's in there. And it'll give us a lovely little subtle orange hot spot in behind the eyes. That's where the eyes are going to go. Holding your tail all in place. Up there. Just put in that hot spot. Now catch your blue and green. And pull that over the top. Making sure one is directly on top of the other. And at the same time, take your white and get it all back there. Making sure it goes nicely even along the hook. Again, work on your wing material. Make sure everything's in exact the place you want it. You can just use your finger and thumb to and manipulate it out there before we start wrapping with thread. And then get a couple of turns of thread up at the eye and get that thread to come back onto the material, trapping that material back. Can be a bit slippy at times, as you can see it's slipping off a little bit. So just build it up with some slow turns, and then once you get some traction on it and some grip onto that material, you can then put a bit more pressure on it, okay? And now we can start seeing a lovely shape to that fly. Okay, you can see our little hot spot either side, our nice blue over top. The green is not exactly where I want it to be, so I can catch that green before I go and seal everything up, and I can give it a little pull across. And there it is, sitting up exactly on top of the blue. That little bit of olive. And you can see even just with that little hot spot, the way, absolutely, Kevin, they would, yeah. How you doing, John and Matthews? Did you get any pike? These will catch pike too. Okay, so I'm just going to whip finish that off there now for a moment. Good tighten, whip finish it off. And we're going to start our resin work, okay? Resin's going to, very important on these. I'm going to try and clear up some of this mess here for a minute. Okay. So, sometimes what I will do is I will brush it out. Give it a bit of a brush before I start doing the resin work. Make sure everything's exactly where it needs to be. All the right sides of the hook. Make sure it's even on both sides of the hook, especially the underbody. Any long bits I need to trim off. Now is the time to give it a brush out. I give it a bit of a stroke back, get a look at it. Making sure it's nice even all around. Let's wrap it around. That's not too much gone to one side of the hook, especially on the other side. Make sure everything's in place. Of course, the first bash that smashes it will make sure it's well sorted out for you. Now we're going to do Solderez thick and hard. I normally use the thin and clear, the thin and hard, but for the likes of these flies and stuff, I'll use the thick and hard. Okay, for the first bit of resin, we want to really get inside that material. So what I'll do is I'll put it on between my finger and thumb. I'll put a nice blob of it there. Not too much, but enough to massage in. About half a pea size will do me quite fine. Okay, so got a little bit of, and I'll just give it a massage between my finger and thumb. Okay, and then with that, then I will catch my material back, and I will just stroke that back. And I'm just pushing it inside and working it inside that material, the head. Now I normally use a brush for my resin work, and you'll see me using a brush later on. But if I was to use a brush on this, an awful lot of those fibres would actually kind of bounce back a bit and they kind of get all messed up and stuff. The finger and thumb is actually the best way to do your first bit of resin, okay? Just to get our shape on the fly, make sure everything's in place. Everything's got a coating inside. Pushing it in there into that dubbin, the little hot spot. Of course, have a towel or a cloth or something nearby that you can good man Janet, he's got one so far. That you can wipe off your hands. Now catch it. Catch a material and pull it. So that's, you can see we can make it quite thin. If I want to bulk up that body a bit, I can push it forward and then hit it with the pen, which will give it a bit more, say, body to it. Or if I wanted really to get a real slimmer look, I'll give it a good pull and tuck it in. Sometimes I'll even give it a sort of a semi-little twist to get it set. And these kind of little fry patterns, I will give it a little bit of a pull and a twist to get it set. And we just give it a shot of the pen. And now you can see it stays. Okay, so it gives us a nice slim profile to the head of that. And now we can start setting the rest of our body up and setting up the rest of our the tine. Okay. Probably, to be honest, the body's a little bit heavy on it than I'd like. Probably a bit heavier than I'd normally like, but it's doing pretty good. Okay, eyes. Where did I leave those eyes that I brought up a few moments ago? I even find them. If not, I can't find them. I'll have to use the other eyes that in front of me. Don't forget, folks, Dave is going to be along with a trivia quiz in a little while as well. Don't know what I did with my eyes, so I'll use these other ones that are in front of me. I normally use red holographic eyes on this particular sort of mackerel fry pattern. But anyway, I've got some silver eyes here in front of me. So, to put on our eyes, come on, Damien. We're going to use the same resin, and I'm going to put a nice dollop of resin up there. Yeah, fly fishing for bass, just class. Like it's electric fishing. I just love it. I do so much river and lakes and stuff like that. And bass fishing is almost my recreational fishing. I don't do any coaching or guiding in it. I do very little fly tying in it. So once I put on my resin, I put my eye in there on top of the resin. And what I'll do now is with the tip of my needle, I'll just move it around into place and kind of get it in there into that nice blob of resin to make sure she's going to be well stuck in. If there's a little bit of excess resin there on the top for the moment, I'll just take it off and give it a little bit of a push in with the pointed needle and then hit a zap. And that's not going anywhere. Okay? As you can see, well secured in. We go to our other side. Excuse me. But bass fishing is my real recreational fishing, where I just go rod, reel, line, little box of flies, pair of waders, sometimes not even no waders, and just go and just enjoy a bit of fishing. Again, on top of the blob of resin, I'm going to put that, and just with the tip of my needle, move it exactly where I want. And don't forget, with resin you got plenty of time. It's not going to settle. I hit the pen with it, so you got plenty of time to get that eye into the exact right position you want it. I want it in around the orange. The left hand is not the steadiest now. In around the orange there, and there we go. So there's our eyes there. You can see the little bit of orange in around them. Exactly where I want it to be. Now, going to take my resin again. I am John, and still it's always my normal voice. This is the only voice I ever tie in, John. So I'm going to take a blob of this resin and I'm going to put a nice head on this. So I'm going to put a nice blob of resin over the top. A little bit down the sides, around those eyes. Down on the bottom. It just gives a lovely shape to the head of the fly. And also gives it a little bit of weight. Okay, so it'll make that fly be a little bit more articulated. Being stripped through it. Now we go to our brush. And now I'll stroke that back a little bit. At the same time keeping a nice tension on the body. Just creating that nice shape I want to create. Just take your time. I say the thing about resin is there's never a panic because it doesn't go off till you hit it. Make sure I get a nice even little head on that. Give it a hit. Well set. Body's a little bit heavy for my liking. Really, I would like it a little bit thinner. A little bit thinner, and I can just take out some of the little bit of underbody because we're working with craft fur, so we can actually just taper that a little bit better underneath. It'll still catch a bass. There's probably a bit too much materials in the Leonard. Hi Anthony Brady, probably a little bit too much. You can see just a little bit heavy here on the back of that fly, more than I'd like. If you look at the one I did earlier, it kind of has a little bit of slimmer profile, little bit of a back heavy on that one, but it's still okay. It'll still fish quite well, still catch fish. I'd probably put another bit of resin on that head to get the shape right. I'm not happy with the shape of the head, so I'll probably give that another little bit of resin up there. Get a bit of a better shape on it. There we go. Yeah, that'll catch a fish all right. There we have it, folks. That's our first one of the evening. I am looking for a tweezers there now to take that out of ice and give you a better look at that one. Can't find it. That's the first one. When she gets wet, she'll come together nicely. It'll have a decent enough long profile on it. Nice firm one. The kind of mackerel are about, and there's you got some mackerel fry and bass are chasing them. Fairly light, like, because it's synthetic material. It's not. You could, thanks Stuart, you could use a non-slip. I tend just to attach straight through, Kieran, to be quite honest with you. Thanks, Sean. It's a real nice slim. Actually, the shape of it isn't bad now that I'm kind of getting out and playing with it a little bit, have a look at it. Really good bass lure. It's, it's going to have a lot of articulation in it. It's going to, it's certainly going to work well being pulled under the water. It's not a surface lure. It's something to go under the water. Don't worry about that. What you call it, a bit of grizzle sitting just to the side, just because the tail end of it. That's kind of where it should sit up the top. And there you go, folks. That's our first kind of, one of the more common kind of flat wing type bass lure that can work really well. And I've got quite a lot of fish in that colour combination over the years. I remember one day I was walking a dog up in Cortown, and I was staying in my mum's place. They live in Poleshawn Bay, and I took the Springer down along the beach. Thanks, Anthony. I took the Springer down along the beach for a bit of a walk. Hot summer's evening. I went down, and the beach was just on fire with mackerel fry. They were up on the sand. The place was just alive with them. Ran back up to the house, grabbed the fly rod, had two of those things in a box of flies, and legged it back down to the beach. And what a night I had! What a night! Bass, mackerel. It was just electric all night long. Went out the following night, not a single fish to be seen. So sometimes you got to get a bit lucky too, you know, and really research your marks. I spend a lot of time on Google Maps looking at places. Get out there and fish. You know, fish high tides. Get a good tide timetable app on your phone. Get the tides right for the different locations. You know, if you're fishing estuaries and places like that, you'll never go too far wrong. I just strip. It depends, Kevin. I just strip. His grand Gareth, thanks. He's grand now. Actually, he spent 3 nights in the vets, and he's fine now. Just shock more than anything else. But you know, just fish the estuaries and stuff like that, and keep an eye out. Like if you just walk headlands and stuff like that, and you're watching mullet and activity of mullet, and if you see mullet fry breaking the surface in large groups, stuff like that, more than likely that's a bass in hunting them around. Look for features like weed beds and stuff like that, and along estuaries, and you know you're never going to be too far wrong. Never going to be too far wrong. Fishing channels and stuff like that. Even go down and look at estuaries in low tide. You'll see the channels and things like that, and you're able to, you know, really target those spots. And you know, your chance will come. Just keep at it; it will come. Now, for the next one, I'm going to do before we go down and see Jason and talk a bit more about tactical stuff. I'm going to do another one, so I'm going to have to just dump a load of stuff here to one side. A bit of a job cleaning this place up tonight. But sure, look at this is my favourite. I love fishing the gurgler. The gurgler fly is my favourite. It's a surface action lure. It's big. It's bad. Absolutely, yeah. Good man, Richard. Richard. This is a big badass gurgler. Love fishing them. And last year, this was probably what I got most of my fish on, was this thing. Okay, so you can see quite a decent sized hook there. Okay, I actually can't tell you what this hook is. It's big. That's all I can tell you. I have a whole stash of saltwater hooks in a big box there, and I'm going to make sure it's well in there, because we're going to be doing a fair bit of pulling and dragging on this. This lad, okay. I'll try and get the camera to really just move just that there still a little bit. Try and give us the maximum amount of view on this fly. Really, yeah, those patterns will also work really well for sea trout, as Richard was saying there. Absolutely, Jim, you're dead right. If it looks fishy, then it's only a matter of putting the time in. Poppers, yes, I use poppers as well, Damien. And this is a form of popper. Gurgler is one of the original popper patterns, okay? And that's why I love fishing them so much. I love being out in the flat cam, real good transparency, you know, summertime, early morning, just coming at dusk. And, you know, you're seeing a bit of activity from mullet and stuff like that. It's a telltale sign that the bass are around. And, you know, you put on a popper surface lower floating line, and you put on a gurgler, and I tell you one thing, if there's a bass within half a mile, he's going to come and have a look at you, because this thing is a serious fly. I love fish, and I fish them big, really, really big. Okay, when I tend to pull stuff on the top, I pull decent stuff on top. Like, you think of some of the lure guys that are actually spin fishing for bass the size of them. Dave is on there, folks. Questions coming up. A nice prize there for people. Okay, so once I've attached in that, then my thread, I'm then going to go to some white sulky here. Okay, it's a little bit coarser than the streamer hair we were using earlier on. Very similar. So the original gurgler was tied with bucktail out the back. Okay, and bucktail is good, and I do tie some of them with bucktail, but sometimes it can be sometimes it can break a bit on me if I'm looking for a longevity fly. Where this actual material, this is slinky hair by Sabaya. It has a very similar kind of look to it as bucktail. Okay, but it's pure synthetic, and it takes awful abuse. Okay, so I'm going to take out a nice section of white. Not a very complex, quite a simple fly to tie. Very enjoyable to tie, actually, because there's not that much to them. But they are so effective, okay? And we're going to tie a nice tail out the back of that. You're just about going to get to see the length of this tail. Okay, once I've got my length, same as before, I'm going to trap it in over that side. Tie it in and lash this on. Really, you know, these are flies that are going to get absolutely smashed. So get that Kevlar, really give it a good lash. Sometimes I'll even put a little bit of, absolutely, sometimes I'll put a little bit of Zappa Gap in there as well, just to help. And make sure that ain't going to slip. Take that and pull it out the back. Again, it helps keep that tail in position and helps to stop it from wrapping in underneath when you're actually fishing it. Wrap it back there and then lash it in. Okay, then I'm going to take a little bit of Mirage, 3 or 4 strands of opal Mirage here. place that in there on top of that. Just again a little bit of flash. You don't need much, you just need a little bit. Just fold it back over. Plus the slinky hair, the thing I like about slinky hair, it's not very absorbent material. Okay, got slinky olive here. And I'm going to take another section of that. And what I'm going to do is again strip it out because there was cut edges. So a strip stack. Okay, strip it out, strip it back. Double that particular piece over. Give it a roll to see what sort of body I have in it. And then it's longer, that's unwanted. Again, just with the corner of my scissors, I can take it out. And we're just going to place that in there on top. And lash that on. Clean it all up. And that's my tail. Dave is on there, I think. No, it's not off a spool. It's off a hank there. Eugene, what was Dave's question there? Lots of guesses coming in there. To what age can a male bass live to on Irish waters? Third correct answer. So it's the third correct answer for that one, guys. What age can a male bass on average live to? So that's on a hank. That one is Eugene. So once I got that tail on, okay, we've then got a couple of other bits of material to do. So we're actually going to put back in some more. Good man, Tim. Good question. A good answer. So I'm going to take another generous strip of that pearl or that Mirage Mylar, and here we got maybe 8 to 10. Okay. Now I moisten these up because it means they all stick together and allows me to differentiate between what I'm tying in now and what's already in the tail. And you're going to tie that in there and leave that hanging out the back. That's the first part to go in. We're then going to take a piece of grizzly cock. Be generous enough with the size. There's nothing subtle about this fly in any way whatsoever, folks. Alright? You can tie small gurglers, there's no problem. You can tie small ones if you want. I'm going to tie them right down to small little size, and I do. They're very good sea-trow fly as well, and I know some people are fishing them on rivers and lakes. Very good sea-trow fly, but this is not for sea-trow. This is for big summertime hungry bass. Okay? Go to the back of the cape altogether. And take out something with a bit of size in it. And we're going to add that in there too. Now sometimes I'll put 2 little bass kind of tips down along that tail as well. Sometimes I do. It can, and it looks quite attractive, but I don't know how productive it can be. You remember, this is a dry fly. This is the best way of describing this. It's a dry fly, so less is more on this one, okay? Now we take a piece of foam, okay? So this is a piece of white flat foam that I've cut out of an EVA block, okay? Closed cell foam block. Brendan Splan, congratulations, Brendan. What you've actually won, Brendan, is 4 lovely packs of craft fur, okay, by the Hens. It's Hens long hair, and there's 4 different colours in there. Brendan, I will get them off to you. I'll get them off to you Monday. I'll give you a shout, get your dress off you. Okay, so what I got is a nice piece of flat foam. It's about 3 mil thick, 3 to 4 mil thick, and it's about half an inch to sort of 5/8 wide. Okay, and this is going to be our foam for doing this fly. Okay, so what I'm going to do is roughly around the length of it, I'm going to punch a hole in it with my scissors, generous enough size hole, and I'll taper back to that hole a bit. Okay, so basically that's what I'm left with. You can see the hole there, and what I'll do now is I'll slide that in over the eye hook. Just be careful sliding over the eye, just slowly. It'll just pop in over, and there we go. And slide it right back to where that Hold up the underside and just see when you pull forward, making sure you're starting from the tail and you're not exposing any of the underbody. Once you've got into that position, I then catch it and wrap it around the hook. Okay, so you can see I'm wrapping the underside up around the hook. Okay, making sure it stays on top. And then a couple of turns there at the back. Not too much pressure on the thread. You don't want the thread to cut into that foam. A couple of turns on the back and then start making my way down, leaving a segmented body underneath. Now an awful lot of gurglers you see tied today don't go through the hassle of putting the underbody. It is the original dressing. You can just lash in that foam on top and then do your bit of dubbing or a bit of whatever work you want to do, and then pull your foam over the top. It's a dry fly at the buoyancy. I want that extra foam in there. Okay, so once I've got that up along there like that, you can see all my segmentation underneath. I'm going to add a little bit of zap gap in on top, just to make sure that foam is all going to stay in place. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to add a little bit of, if I can put my hands on it real quick, something like a metallic red or orange up near the head. Just for the last little bit. Just up there I'm going to wrap in a bubble of that. Nothing too fancy about it, lash it on. That's going to be a real nice target point. Okay, we now take our hackle. It's our grizzle hackle. And we're going to start winding that up. I'm going to follow the thread. Following those crevices, wind it up and all those where your thread went, right up to the head. I'm minded the hackle is facing slightly forward. I can sort all that out now in a few moments, and I certainly will. A couple of turns up near the head. Whip finish, or not whip finish, getting a bit too far ahead of myself there. Tie it off, secure it in quite well, and there we go. Take your dubbing brush, your hackle brush, whatever you use, and start just parting those hackles off the top. Take our foam and pull that over the top as well. Holding nice and tight in place. Couple of wraps there. Check underneath. Couple of wraps. Back in underneath. Okay. Now we take this long, and this is why I have that moistened up. Okay, we take this long section and we pull that directly over top and spread it out. Okay. That's a bit of cider there. Helps us see what's going on. That gurgler coming across the surf. And that goes in the top like so. Just trim that off below the main head. And you can whip finish that up. If I can find my whip finish tool. Thanks, Jay. It's a brute, but my God, do I love fishing that fly. It is absolutely, Damien, you're dead right. It's a beautiful fish to fish for. Very sporting. And catch and release is the way to go. I just take the bare corners off that just to tidy up a little bit. And there we have it, folks. You can get in a little bit of Zappa Gap or a little bit of lacquer in there onto that thread and stuff, just to make sure it ain't going to go anywhere. Everyone's nicely secured in place. I don't know, Graham. It's been a long time. Time flies, tying every kind of thing and fishing for everything. So there we have it. Sometimes I put a little bit of coloured foam in there in that knuckle as well to give it that little bit of extra visibility for me so I can see it. But that's a gurgler, folks. That's a gurgler. Absolutely love fishing them. They're absolutely magic. You see that thing popping along the surface, pulling there, and about 18 inches to 2 foot behind it, you'll see a V coming or even from the side of a bass ready to attack, and I tell you, the hair will stand up in the back of your neck, even if you don't have hair. Yeah, they work quite well for those too, Dennis, I'm sure, yeah. They're absolutely, yeah, they're a super fly, and it's just electric fishing. You know, if you're going to do a little bit of bass fishing and you want to get a fish, for me it's the surface stuff. You know, it always has been surface stuff. Even when I used to be spinning, you know, spinning poppers and stuff like that, love the surface action, the calm day, a bit of transparency. You know, you see a bit of activity and you get a fish on something like that. He's going to hit it and hit it hard, hence the size of the big hook and stuff. You know, really, really good one. Thanks, Stuart. No, I haven't, Dylan, but I know plenty of guys that tie smaller, much smaller, and I've often been asked for much smaller. Absolutely, Gary. Yeah. I often wonder that myself. How do I remember? But it's just I can retain a lot of flight line information. I can't retain much more. Anything else really, Gareth. My mind is only is able to retain flight line patterns and stuff like that. But I keep a very good journal too, Garrett. I keep a very good journal and have since I was a kid of all the fly patterns. I have big chests of flies. I never let any information go to waste. I write it down straight away. But there's a gurgler, folks. Absolutely. Just if you're going to take up a bit of bass fishing this summer, tie a gurgler for yourselves. You don't need a massive amount of materials or anything really fancy, and just tie one of those and go out on a floating line there, fish that on a bit of heavy tippet, and you could have some really, really good fun. And it is a really good fun, you know, out there fishing the gurglers. Right, folks, I'm going to take a wee break, try make a bit of a sense of the bench here because there's just stuff all over the place. When we come back, we're going to tie a mullet fry pattern. That's really, really good, and I've caught a lot of fish on this one too. So that one's coming up next. But we're going to head down as far as Dungarvan, and we're going down to see probably one of the best, most knowledgeable and best bass anglers in the country, especially in the southeast of Ireland. Jason O'Riordan. Went down and met him during the summer, spent a couple of sessions with him there, and really did pick up a lot from him to improve my game. So it's always worth going to see people like Jason. Brilliant tiger trout, right? Excellent, yeah. Yeah, Kevin. Especially used to the stuff we'd be fishing on the Kings River, Kevin. It's a bit of a big one, all right, yeah. But I'm going to head down as far as Jason now. Enjoy this interview, folks. There's a good bit in it, lots of good tips there, and I will see us back here in a few moments. We're going to be doing a lovely little mullet fry pattern that's definitely worth having for the estuaries. Okay, see you in a moment. It's a bit of a big one, all right, yeah. But I'm going to head down as far as Jason now. Enjoy this interview, folks. There's a good bit in it, lots of good tips there, and I will see us back here in a few moments. We're going to be doing a lovely little mullet fry pattern that's definitely worth having for the estuaries. Okay, see you in a moment. It's a bit of a big one, all right, yeah. But I'm going to head down as far as Jason now. Enjoy this interview, folks. There's a good bit in it, lots of good tips there, and I will see us back here in a few moments. We're going to be doing a lovely little mullet fry pattern that's definitely worth having for the estuaries. Okay, see you in a moment. It's a bit of a big one, all right, yeah. But I'm going to head down as far as Jason now. Enjoy this interview, folks. There's a good bit in it, lots of good tips there, and I will see us back here in a few moments. We're going to be doing a lovely little mullet fry pattern that's definitely worth having for the estuaries. Okay, see you in a moment. It's a bit of a big one, all right, yeah. But I'm going to head down as far as Jason now. Enjoy this interview, folks. There's a good bit in it, lots of good tips there.
Over the years, I've had plenty of disappointing nights, but plenty of good nights too. Evenings. Got a nice tide this evening. High tide just on the edge of dark, so we'll probably fish. It's 3 o'clock now. We'll be fishing for about 4:30, right onto the edge of dark, and perhaps even after dark a little bit, depending on what way the fish and the sea looks. But we're going to head down there now and have a chat with Jason about a bit of a setup and approaches and some fly patterns and stuff like that, and then go through a cast. So enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll see you all soon. So we've landed. We're down here in Dungarvan in County Waterford here. We're joined by the one and only Mr. Jason O'Riordan, our bass pro down here in the southeast of Ireland. How are you doing, Jason? Thanks for joining us on the show.
No bother, Peter.
Great to be down here with you. We're going to head out in a little while and maybe throw a cast and hopefully get a fish too. But first, Jason, just wanted to have a quick chat with you for the people out there that are into a bit of bass fishing, or people that are aspiring to a bit of bass fishing over the next season or two. You know, when you're starting to do a bit of bass fishing, or you're looking to improve your bass fishing, what kind of, you know, I suppose we'll start with the setups. What kind of a setup would you recommend, or what are you talking about? What do I need to get if I'm going to get into a bit of bass fishing?
Probably something around 9 feet, 7 weight up to 9.
Okay.
You know, 7 weight will catch most of the flies. You know, you use the 7 weight some of the time yourself. Yep. Maybe for the really big flies a 9, but guys starting off, something versatile like a 7 covers mullet, trout, bass. You know, a lot of different things you can do with a rod like that.
And you're using the 9-way, just so you mentioned, the 9-way 8-9s there to punch out those big flies, really.
Really, yeah. It's mostly big flies or really rough ground, just to like bully a fish.
What sort of length do you ideally look for?
Most of it be 9 feet.
9 foot.
You can use a 10-foot, 7. You know, double up as a lake rod for someone.
Yeah.
You might say I'll go for an 8 or a 9, double up as a pike rod.
Okay.
You know, people forget they think a bass rod's just for bass, but
yeah, of course,
use it for
absolutely.
different
Yeah,
things.
them size rods are very versatile. Like I use my lake rod, you
Yeah.
know, and I find it perfect for bass fishing. And then when it comes to lines, look, putting lines on it, what sort of reels and lines are you?
I suppose before we mention that, we better mention the salt with the rods.
Of course, absolutely.
You know, ideally you want a rod that's, you know, anodized for saltwater use.
Yeah.
You can get away with another rod for a while, but there's a lot of washing, a lot of minding. Proper saltwater rod will, you know, last you a lot longer.
Right, okay, of course.
It's designed for it.
And you still give them a bit of a wash down afterwards?
I'd always give them a wash down. I give them a spray, a silicone spray.
Okay.
As well.
Right,
You know,
just get that bit more longevity out of your book.
Yeah, I think the silicone spray probably helps for the next session.
Right, okay, yeah, of course, absolutely, yeah. And then moving on to reels, lines, what am I looking to pick up, or what do I need to bring with me?
Look, again, the reels, you can get saltwater resistant, we'll say, that people don't like the word saltwater proof.
Yeah.
Saltwater resistant rods, reels. Then you're looking at probably likes of the Airflow V3, I think is the more recent one. Yeah. That's saltwater resistant, and it's not too expensive. And then you can go up to the fancy really expensive.
And would you want a drag system be something you'll be really considering when you're
for
looking
bigger
at
fish? It is. And as well, just for hooking the fish, they've very leathery mouths.
Yeah.
So again, just being able to set that hook on a strip strike.
Okay.
You miss a strip and he takes. You're going to want to have your drag fairly tight unless it's very clean ground.
Okay.
So rocks and kelp, you want to stop that fish dead.
Right. Okay.
Don't let him do. Usually, what happens with a bigger bass is he does a sort of a circle around whatever structure is there.
Right.
And 3 or 4 wraps in the kelp, your rod's not going to lift
Yes.
a bass and kelp and probably a stone attached to the kelp.
Yeah. And lines, then, what do I want to bring with me lines?
Again, you're really predator type lines. Ideally, a weight forward probably work for small flies, but any of your predator ones, I mean, I use an outbound short a lot. I use an OPST head for the really big lines.
Right.
I really like that for the big flies with the big foam heads, that sort of fly.
Okay, right.
And then Airflow do snipers, they're popular as well in the intermediate, particularly. A lot of lads like them.
Right.
I'm happy enough with the Rio outbound shorts. And again, there's freshwater, saltwater, and be careful. A lot of lads started off bought tropical lines.
Right, yeah, I actually went down that road a little bit one stage myself.
They're likely to crack.
Right.
So, I know lads who bought them, I used them in cold water and they didn't work out, so make sure it's a cold water line, and again, that'll double up for pipe. Unless you're going on a destination trip, the hot water, you don't really buy a tropical line.
Okay, right, yeah. And then when it comes down to tippets, what am I looking to bring with me tipper-wise for an afternoon session?
Like trout or anything, you're trying to match the size of the flies. So the 2 options, you can go tapered leader route. Could be a bit expensive for a lad starting off. He's going through a lot of them. So I would probably be using, I know you like diameter, but you're talking probably 0.33 or bigger for a lot of the flies.
Right.
And if you're fishing very shallow, clear water, kind of stalking type fishing, you could probably go down closer to like 0.24 or something like that. Which I suppose in pounds you're looking at 10 pounds in the light stuff, and then 15 plus. I probably have 25 pounds. On
what sort of length leaders are you going to?
Smaller flies, length of the rod.
Okay.
Bigger flies.
9 foot or so.
Bigger flies could be only 5 or 6 feet sometimes with a popper. You want to keep contact with that popper too.
Set that hook.
Yeah, set the hook and work the fly.
Okay, right.
You know, as well, you need contact to work the fly. So, smaller, like small baitfish patterns and that you can use 9 foot or like 12 pound or like say 0.24 or something. Probably. You might want to taper the leader yourself for the bigger flies.
Okay, turn over.
Yeah. So what I normally do is I make twisted leaders.
Okay, right.
So I make maybe 3 or 4 foot of a twisted leader. So it might be, say, 15 pounds twisted, which is obviously doubled up. And I have a little swivel in the loop of it, and then I add another few feet of leader to that.
Okay.
So that's the way I would taper for big flies.
Gotcha, yeah. And then when it comes down to the fly end of it, what's like, for someone that's, they can tie their own few flies and stuff like that, what should they be knocking up kind of size-wise and type-wise? Like, if you were to pick 2 or 3 patterns that you'd say, look at, this is the kind of stuff you wouldn't want to be without on any day.
Small baitfish pattern.
Okay, yeah.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be too fancy.
Yeah.
Plenty flash.
Yeah.
Sand eel patterns.
Basic colours,
They're
whites,
what they eat.
blacks.
Whites in the baitfish, probably blue or olive kind of backs.
Yeah.
Still like a bit of lavender is good in some of the
Right.
sand eel flies. And look, poppers, gurglers.
Surface stuff.
You're a gurgler.
I love my gurglers.
Well,
yeah. Not like that bit of surface action and seeing the bass come up and take it. Like.
And in different sizes
Yeah.
as well. You don't need loads of different patterns and only one of each.
Yeah.
You might be better off to stick to half dozen patterns and, you know what I mean, have them in a couple of sizes.
Yeah, I get you, yeah.
Shrimps and small little shrimps and things like that, Scotty type flies can be good as well for schoolies and chance of picking up a mullet.
Yeah.
So don't need too much starting off.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. That's great. A little bit of an introduction there into what gear we would like to, that you think you should bring with you if you're going to get into a bit of bass fishing. I'm only getting back into a bit now, so Jason's been a great help there over the last couple of months getting me set up. But that's great bit of stuff there. So
That's the cassette one.
So Jason, when you're considering, you've got all your gear together and stuff like that, and you're thinking about, right, I'm going to go bass fishing there now, and what is it, Wednesday evening, 3 o'clock, I'm going to head out somewhere. The tide is fairly decent. What kind of key grounds are we looking for? What makes you choose a location?
Yeah, few things. I suppose weather conditions are tied in with that.
Okay.
If you have really rough onshore winds, going out to the rock marks, probably, particularly with a fly rod, disaster. Where you come into an estuary like out here,
Yeah.
a lot more shelter, shallower, clean, looking for cleaner water.
Okay.
That's always a big help.
Is transparency a big thing here?
As in water clarity. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think so, because
Okay.
what we're using with feathers compared to what, say, spinning lads have
Yeah.
with rattles and all of that. Probably some of the big pike flies are kind of closer to the lures that are used. So very quickly change your wind direction and all that sand out there starts to make the water pretty muddy.
Right.
I think for someone starting off, estuaries, and just really watch the tides. Don't get cut off, know the tide heights.
Safety.
Yeah,
Always think
safety, wading.
Yeah.
It looks lovely and flash out behind me here, but there's lots of little gullies and cuts and channels.
Cut off there very quick.
Yeah. This particular spot behind us, I've seen the helicopter rescue at least 3 sets.
And you just touched on something there now, make me think, like, I'm predominantly trout man. I know features are a big thing for me. Features on rivers, features on lakes. I'm always looking for a feature that might hold a trout, that might say, it might be a trout in one there because there's a bit of safety, or there's a bit of extra feed there or it's a nice run, or whatever it may be. How big is it important to be able to identify features for bass fishing?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important when you think of holding, and it's a bit like trout holding spots, which you probably might say in a pool or that. So kelp, structure,
rocks,
gullies, some are almost hidden features. You look at what looks like a beach and it all looks the same, but guys who are bass fishing a long time, they can spot currents. Currents that meet up with each other. Even just if you're fishing in, say, outgoing tides and estuaries where there's a flow of water, a flow of water moving the fly keeps the fish chasing the food. Better chance than when it's really standing still and your fly is just motionless and you're trying to put all the life into it by stripping it. Whereas, if you're casting into a current and letting it swing around, it's just natural. Like, I'm sure you're the same with when
so watch your grounds, watch where you choose, and I try and identify something that might be a little telltale sign that this is where there could be a fish, like.
Yeah, and ask around, ask people who know.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, get out there and ask and experiment. And how important is it to get the tides right?
Really important. A, for safety, B, moons and tides sort of coincide, so your big spring tides help. There's a big big difference in the strip, as in how far it goes out, and then obviously how high the tide is and how powerful it is.
Right.
So you're always kind of fishing ideally around new moons or full moons.
Okay.
At the moment we're on a new moon starting, so the first crescent will be starting this evening.
Right.
We have high water at 8 o'clock. Pretty much.
Good time.
Just getting dark.
Just on the edge dark.
Yeah.
Do you like your high water just on the edge of dark?
It's good, yeah.
Yeah, it's the best.
Bass kind of early morning, late evening is a good time. So coinciding with a good tide, and if the wind drops a little bit, just make it a little bit easier for us, because you know, again, if you were a beginner, you know, try and pick a location, watch the wind direction for a beginner. I know from guiding, you're always trying to help lads by having, you know, not wind into their face unless you really have to, because...
Okay, and just you mentioned that wind in the face and the dangers and stuff like that. In relation to safety then, like we're always a big thing in the show. We talk to everybody about safety and things like that. We mentioned it already. As regards, you know, hitting yourself out, you see you've got chest waders on, or normal chest waders on, waterproof jackets. Obviously we wear sunglasses and hats. What other kind of accessories and stuff do we need to bring? Would you kind of say that, you know...
Normally I bring sunglasses. This evening I might bring a pair of clear glasses.
Just to protect the eyes, because
we'll be fishing crosswind, and also, you know, the sun's going to go down, and of course the tendency is to take the glasses off, and these are big flies and they're big hooks.
Yeah, if they go in there, you're headed to the hospital.
So, and look, maybe beginners, I have an app on my phone, make sure we'll say a good app that... it'll do the tides for maybe a week, so you need something like that tells you the height of the tide, the strip of the tide. Again, you could bring a life jacket. There's a lot of stuff out there that the lower anglers do, in terms of little things on your phone or something that can alert someone.
Exactly.
I have a theory. Just don't fish these kind of places unless you really have to.
Really risky, like.
Yeah,
especially on the rocks.
Guys climbing.
Rocks can be lethal.
Guys climbing down ropes to fish rock marks. You know, there's plenty of fishing and other marks that you can start off on that are pretty safe.
And then just to finish off on something that I missed on the setups there, what way do you kit yourself out when you're heading out? What, are you wearing a chest pack, or are you just putting stuff in the pocket, or? No,
I'd normally, but obviously with the waders, I'd have a sling pack. I like sling packs. Just to get the thing out behind my back, out of my way. Inside in the sling pack, you're going to have a bit of leader, flies. I use a finger guard. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see the finger guard.
Or a glove.
I mistakenly forgot my finger guard the last day we were here fishing, and I paid the price for it for a few days afterwards. Everything I touched stung.
Those gloves, did you have the real light ones?
Yeah, they can be good.
I got a pair of them. I think Ned has them as well. They're quite good. And then I suppose otherwise a line tray. That's one of my pet peeves. Is not having a line tray, because you know you've got a flow tide. You've got usually a lot of time in an estuary you're going to have weed floating in around where you're wading, not necessarily where you're casting. And all that slack line that's floating around on the water or sinking sometimes.
Driving nuts for even.
A guy goes to cast and all you see is a loop of line with a fistful of weed. And it goes to the first ring on the rod and no further. And then he spends 10 minutes cleaning off the weed. He gets it cast out, another 10 minutes. So I'd always have spare line trays when I'm guiding people just to put on, because... and look, if you were really getting into it, I would recommend getting a good line tray, because they have little spikes in them, and the line doesn't tangle coming off them. That, you know.
I get you. Yeah. We're going to head out now and do a little bit of casting here for a while, folks, and see if we can pick up a bass. But just before we leave Jason and we head up along the beach, Jason, we ask everyone top tips. What's our kind of, I know you've crossed on a lot there very quickly of information there. What's the top tips would you recommend anyone looking to get into bass fishing, or consider wants to up their game in bass fishing, or have tried it and really want to improve? What's the couple of top tips there to...
Yeah, I mean, look, talk to people who know what they're doing. Make sure you're getting the right equipment. Fly equipment, it can be tricky for people, just to get the right stuff.
You can spend an awful lot of money on the wrong stuff.
You could easily, very easily. And then, like, how do you find locations? So you show up here today and you look out there, a couple of miles of sand beach, now, couple of miles of water shortly. Where do I start fishing? Very easy if you're used to rivers and lakes to sort of look out and say, how far do I cast? They could be out of range, and all the doubts creep into people's heads. So
absolutely.
Look, it's not a smart answer to say get a guide, obviously.
But it's true. We recommended the whole time.
getting into any
Definitely.
kind of fishing,
Yeah.
you know, hiring a guide is valuable, and it's an investment into your sport and hobby,
Yeah.
as much as it is having a good rod or a good reel, you know, because the guide is not only going to show you marks, but he's going to show you typical types of water where you're going to find bass. You're going to get information on flies, leaders, casting things and stuff, you know. So absolutely, guides are, you know, yeah, a good professional guide is always
Yeah,
worth
we
investment.
spoke about this before in terms of sort of where does someone start, and like it's just such an expanse, and I think we had a conversation, we spoke about competition fishing, and that bass fishing is really new compared to
Yes, of
salmon
course,
or
it is,
trout
yeah,
fishing, and
absolutely,
I think, you know, we forget that,
Yeah,
you know, where, you know, if I want to learn about nymphing, I can go to, if I really want to, I can go to like a, you know, an Irish champion or
Yes.
a world champion, or if I want to learn about salmon fishing, I can go to like top spay
yeah.
casters. Fly fishing in the salt is new, and
yeah,
it's
absolutely. And I know when I took up
behind, you
really
know.
got into the salt fly fishing a couple of years back, like there was 2 full seasons. I ducked egg most days because I had no idea what I was doing. There was very little resources for me there to tap into, you know. And it was only when I kind of crossed over into the spinning a little bit, and then started transferring all that information over into fly fishing, they actually start getting results. But it was 2 or 3 seasons before I actually really started getting any kind of, you
Yeah,
know.
and you touched on something really important there, and we shouldn't laugh, but bass marks and bass
yeah.
anglers is quite a secretive thing.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
really, you can really shoot yourself in the foot if someone brings you and shows you a spot,
Yeah.
and then you disclose it, or you start showing up with 10 of your friends.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
can be
they're
kind
very
of, yeah.
slow-growing fish,
Yeah.
and you know, like catch and release is even more important.
Absolutely. Well, there is strict guidelines and rules there around bass fishing in the Irish coastline, so make sure you're aware of those on the IFI website, around, you know, as regards what if you are going to keep a fish, what you're allowed to keep, and when you're allowed to fish and when you're not allowed to fish. Quick question: season for bass? Close season.
Well, yeah, there is a closed season. We wouldn't normally be fishing in the closed season. You're talking sort of December, January.
Okay.
Those sort of months, which like, really we wouldn't be fly fishing for bass in
No,
those.
yeah.
In terms of the fishing season, you're probably looking at starting fishing late April.
Okay.
And fishing until probably, if you're lucky, into November. And then once you start getting hard frost, that's pretty much the end of your fly fishing.
I guess, yeah.
So yeah, there are 2 or 3 months there where you can't, in terms of keeping fish. You can fish all year round. There are 2 or 3 months where you can't keep a fish. There's no
Yeah.
actual closed
Okay.
anymore. There used to be a spawning.
That's right. There
Yeah,
was. I think last 2
yeah.
weeks of May, first 2 weeks of June, was it, or
Yeah,
April, May, or something like that?
I think it was 15th,
4 weeks, yeah.
15th of May to the 15th of
Yeah,
June
that's
or
correct.
something.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's abolished now.
That's abolished, which, look, we could have a whole debate about fish that are spawning or
Yeah,
spawning
look, I know,
and having fishing and allowed to keep fish, considering how slow growing bass are. But look, they're the rules, and there's size limits, and at the moment, during the month you can keep a fish, it's 2 fish, and I think it's around maybe 43 centimetres.
Right.
And you'd say you should know, but I don't keep them.
Yes.
And
Well, yes, I know.
young
Yeah.
people I'm guiding
But you
don't
can
keep
get
them,
all the
so-
information on the IFI website.
Yeah, you can get
Check it out, yeah, folks. So there we have it, folks. We're going to head off now. Myself and Jason, we're going to make our way up along this lovely coastline here, as you can see. Plenty of expansive water there now. We've got to search out and try and nail a couple of bass. We might even try to get one on camera this evening. So thanks a million to Jason for joining us on the show, and we'll talk to you all there now in a few minutes. There we go. We're back. I think everyone can hear me. Can everyone hear me okay? It's this new computer I have, folks. Just get mixed up between it's a different kind of one than the other one. Thanks a million to Jason. Huge thanks to Jason there for coming on and giving a great interview. Wealth of knowledge there as always. And as always, folks, huge thanks to everyone that comes on and contributes to the show. It's great to have so many people coming on and giving us their information and, you know, and sharing and proving all our fly fishing things like that. So well done Jason. Thanks a million. Look forward to another couple of trips to the Bass with you this year. So we're going to move on now, folks. There was a few things I spotted. I'll think of them now in a few minutes. We're going to move on and do a little mullet kind of fry pattern. Can be very good, especially if the bass are targeting that. Thanks, Kevin. Especially because I just don't know which buttons to be pressing sometimes anymore. There's a couple of buttons here I'm kind of still figuring out. I need to rename them for myself. But couple of things come up in the comments there. I'll think of them now in a minute as I start working away here. By the way, folks, don't forget Jason O'Riordan will be down in Adair Springs for the Irish Spring Angling Fair for a couple of days. He will be doing some talks on bass fishing. He'll be around all weekend, so you can drop by and see Jason, have a chat with him and pick his brain a bit. There'll be also lots of other bass anglers, bass fly tyers. John Moreau is going to be there as well, and you know it's angling for all down in that Irish Spring Angling Fair at the end of July. So you can check out Jason and stuff down there. You can check out Jason down at the Irish Spring Angling Fair in Mooncoin, and a lot of fly tyers and stuff there, talking about bass fishing and stuff like that as well. Henry Gilby is going to be there. Going to be a great show on the 29th and 30th of April this year. We'll be there, of course, as well. Won't be talking about bass. I'll be talking about it was Kevin, yeah, it was. I'll be talking about trout fishing. So this little fry pattern, we're going to use a bit more natural material. So I got a little bit of white bucktail here, and I'm going to select. There's going to be a lot of good fly tyers down at that show. An awful lot better fly tyers at bass flies than I am. Tying some fantastic flies. Take off a section of the bucktail. Not going to stack it, but I'm just going to do a little strip stack on it, just to keep the natural ends, but not having too much of a long taper on the natural ends of it there. And again, less is more on this one, so just teething out some of the ones there that I don't need. And I'm going to tie them in much stronger material than, say, the craft furs and stuff, so I'll tie that in directly out the back. And we're going to lash that in well up along, making sure it's well secure. Again, I'm on the size 4 Osprey hook. Take away that waste. Now a little bit of lateral scale. Okay, so you can see this is just a hank I've just folded up into a little bag here. Keep it from, I think the cable tie broken it. So that's lateral scale. As you can see, it's a tinsel with kind of dimples along it, or creases along it, whichever way you best want to describe it. And again, only 3 or 4 little strands of that, not much. Attach them in and tie them in there like so. Take away our waste. Now I'm going to put in some Superfine UV dubbing by Sabaya. I'm going to do this in a couple of sections. Got a nice bit of meatiness to this body of this fly. Start down the bottom and come up 1 3/4 way. I'd often go back over with the Kevlar again, giving a nice bit of strength, tightening up a bit. Yeah, Aidan sure was. It was a great show last year. Going to be a lot bigger, a lot better this year. It's going to be a cracking show. Probably have enough on that there now for the moment, I'd say. Now I'm going to tie in a little grizzle hackle on that there. Again, as before, making sure it's nice and flat. It's a fine grizzle, not really quite a broad. I'll keep this little fly as slim as possible. I'll come back onto that dubbing a little bit when we trade to make sure that's mounted nicely on top and tied in. So once I'm happy with that, I'll then take my thread up to the front. Now we're going to use a little bit of Arctic Fox here. This is grey Arctic Fox. I'm going to take a nice little pinch of this one. Hey Betty. Seems to be working okay on my end, bar that one little bit of a loop with the start of that interview, just because I pressed the wrong sound button really. So once I judge the kind of length I want, that these natural tips are coming back pretty much all the way to the tail, I'll spin that around in my hands and I'll tie it out the front. Like so. And just trim away that. Waist there. Secured in well. Flip over that fly. And we'll take, this time, a piece of white. Arctic Fox. And do the same. Stripping out some of that looser, softer material from the bottom, but not losing too much body up in the midsection there. And again, once I'm happy with the length, twist it around. Sit it in there underneath. Get a wrap on it and get it into position that's directly under the hook. Once I got it in place, a couple of harder wraps, start knuckling down on that material. Take away a little bit of waste there. A couple of more lateral scales going in there. Just a nice subtle bit of flash through the fly. Just taking away our waste. Then what I'll add in is a bit of the red hotspot dubbing. It is short, yeah, it's very strong. I use it for tying everything from dries to, but it is super fine, really easy to split because it's not twisted. So if we're splitting for CDC and stuff short, it's fantastic for doing that small stuff. But for doing the likes of these flies and pike flies, it's great stuff. Going to add in that nice hot spot there again. A little bit too much on there, I'll go back a little bit. Just covering up that thread work. Bring that right up to the eye. Now catch your grey on top, pull it back, catch your white underneath and do the same. Pinch it there at the eye and then with get your left hand in around and make sure again it's evenly departed across that underbody. Okay, so one side is not heavier than the other. So once we're happy with that, a couple of turns up near the eye. And again, just try and get that thread. Can slip sometimes. You just want to get up a couple of mil onto that fly, onto those fibres, to trap them back into position. And then we're happy enough, and it holds everything back into place. Have a look. You can again see our little, nice subtle little bit of orange coming through there. The hot orange coming through the side of our fly. A little bit less on this side coming through, so I can just manipulate that before we get all our resin work done. Couple of extra turns, whip finish. Martin Dillahunty, great question. Is there any need to? Sometimes the only really time I wax the Kevlar is I've done a little bit of them, Jim Myler. I've done a little bit of crab flies over the years, just playing around with my own stuff. I have some there in the box, all right, but The only real time, Martin, I'll wax that thread is when I'm using seals for. Now that is a particular, you have a real good case there for waxing that thread at that particular point. Thanks, Damien. You have a real good case there for waxing the thread at that particular point to help you get up onto that, to stop it from slipping off that. But now we're going back to the same process we went before. A little bit of the thick hard, the pink bottle of the Solder's UV resin. I always find Solder's to be the better of all the resins that are out there. Put on half a pea size onto your finger, your forefinger, and just massage it between. And again, this time catch all your stuff, all your fibres, and bring it back. And get a little bit of that, and just start stroking it back along, making sure we're getting into everything's in place. And you're squeezing it up, kind of pushing it up into that head. Give stuff a little bit of a pull and move it exactly into position where I want it to be. Okay, as usual then. Richard, bulletproof. So now we'll catch it again, as we did with the last one, stroking it all back and getting it as slim as I want. I really want these mullet fry to be quite skinny, and I'll give it a little shot. You see that lovely little tint of orange come to our body. Now when that gets wet, that little orange hot spot that's in underneath that white Arctic fox, it'll really shine through. It'll be absolutely, it'll be beautiful. It'll be absolutely beautiful coming through that. We're going to take our eyes next to mount our eyes as we did before. Vice to the side. Nice little blob there. This time I would use the silver holographic. No, you wouldn't, Kenneth. No, there's no scent off the glue. Thanks, Adrian. There's no scent off that glue, Adrian, or Kenneth, so I won't get stoned. No. And the eye's just gone the wrong side for me. That's okay. I'm going to be giving all that a good coat up in a few minutes anyway. Get it into position. Using your needle, you can push it around the tip of your needle. Get in exactly the position I want. Once I got in position, I can use the needle just to keep a little bit of pressure on it so it's not sticking too far off the body, and then give it a zap. And I was just going to say, another time it can happen that your needle will actually get stuck to the eye and you will pull away the eye. And that just happened to me. But it's okay, because we're going to be coating the hell out of this now in a minute, and it's stuck there enough for the moment. Okay, turn it over, and I'll do the same on the other side. If that was a pike fly now or something, and I'm not going to put a big resin head on it, I would remove that fly or that eye and I would remount it again. But not this one's okay, because we're going to put at least 2 if not 3 more coats of resin on top of this fly to really get the profile in the head we want. Take my next, these are all Sabaya 4mm eyes I'm using. Sabaya have a great range of eyes. We have them all in the shop there. An annoying little piece of craft fur attached to that eye. Get rid of it. I'm going to have to do this on my hand. Get it in there. If there's a little bit of excess, you can just massage it back with your finger just for a moment. Just get it up a little bit further up there the head. There we go. Set it again. Now, once that's set, we start adding in our resin. So again, generous amounts on the top. As these large bottles are really, really good. You know, there's quite a lot of resin in them. And you do need it for some of these flies. So I'm going to put a nice decent blob all around the head of that fly there for a moment. And we take our brush. You can, Dean Gates, you can use would they work better than the resin? I don't know. Those plastic heads by Hens, they're lovely. And I do tie some streamers with them. But some of the effect that you can just get from the resin is a little bit different. You know, you get a much sleeker look on it. Now this time, as you can see, I'm coating this back much further than we did the last one. So I'm really holding everything back in position and getting a much longer coat back on this one. Getting my shape of the fly really exactly the way I want it. Don't worry if you don't get it dead smooth at this particular point, because we are going to be putting more coats on it. Okay, the most important thing is you hold it in position, hold the fibres in position as you stroke them back. Getting that resin all back along there. The first one, just get as close as you can. Before you set it with your pen, make sure you hold it in the right position. As a guy, so if I was to hold it up like that and I set it, it'll set upwards, okay, you'll get a back kick on it. So you always want to kind of set it a bit lower than the shank and hook to have that nice natural bend on it. Okay, don't hold it up in the air when you're setting it. Hold it kind of slightly below, so you get that nice natural flow in the fly, nice natural profile. It's not riding high, the tail. So when you let it go, it stays nice and level, or stays nice and nicely shaped. And we'll go again with the resin. On top, little bits on the side, not to worry about side as much now, more on the top and bottom to get that nice bullet shape to the head of that fly. And again, using my brush, stroking it back along, get a nice even shape to it. Holding in position and hit it a zap. Starting to level out a little bit. Just do a little bit of trimming here. Just one or two little fibres there, just annoying me. Okay. That stuff sets like very quick. I've eaten mullet, yeah, I've eaten mullet, not in Ireland, but I've eaten mullet abroad, Graham. Yeah. Now, just before I go any further, I'm going to put some markings on the back of that fly. Now, what I've done here is I've mixed a little bit of mica powder, a nice olive gold mica powder here with the same resin I've used. You've all heard me speaking about mica powder before, and I take a little dabble of that onto my dubbing needle, okay? And just up along the back of it here, I will just, probably a little bit too much on that one, I'll just put some little marks across the back of it. And that's really kind of just to imitate those markings on the mullet, little mullet fry. Couple of little marks on the back of it. And the camera's not picking it up quite great, but there's some lovely just little dimpling on the back. There's probably more to catch the fisherman than the fish, but it does look really nice when it's done. Giving it another zap. Mica powder is great stuff we've spoken about before. You can see there where I just mixed it, mica powder, and you can get a lot of colours. I have about 50 odd colours there. 50 odd colours there, and it's really good stuff. I'm going to put another little bit of resin on top of that again, and it just gets the shape in my head exactly the way I want it. Smoothing off the last little bit. That's got a really nice shape to it now. And now I can really see that. You'll see, and I'll take a picture of that tomorrow for you, is that the head with those little olive markings in underneath the head. They're absolutely beautiful. They really set the fly off. Again, stroke it back along, hold everything into position, and give it a zap. And that's a little mullet fry. So if they're hammering the mullet, that would be something, that grey colour, grey and white with those little bit of orange in the back there. And absolutely, Robbie, yeah. Mica powder, it is very, very good stuff. So there we have another lovely bait fry pattern. That one's more for, say, to represent mullet fry. And when that thing gets wet and starts taking its proper shape, and the bit of transparency comes into that tail and the whole lot, it's an absolute beaut. An absolute beautiful little fry pattern. You'll have no problem hitting bass with that. As you can see, the little bit of markings on the top, it's not really going to pick it up. You can kind of pick it up there a little bit. But the transparency in the head, you wonder why they put on so many layers. Well, like the more layers we put on, the more transparency, the more natural, the more meaty looking that head is, the more realistic it gets to be, it becomes. And it's a really good little fry. Definitely one I always have in the box with me, and can catch quite a few fish with it. So there we have it, folks. That's the end of our bass night. Three relatively simple patterns, nothing too complicated there. Just take your time and tie them. Watch your material, your material as regards not too much. Less is more. Probably in the first one I could have done with a little bit less. Even that one could be a little bit skinnier, but by the time it gets a couple of bass, they'll tear a couple of fibres out and be just perfect. Bit of time on your resin work. Don't look to do it all in one go. 3 or 4 layers always works best. And there you go, folks. I hope everyone's enjoyed the show. Love tying that kind of stuff and sharing a bit of information, which is something different away from our usual trout stuff and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people on here that do a bit of bass fishing. There's a lot of people that would like to do a bit of bass fishing. All I can say is get out this summer, folks. Give it a bit of practice. Don't forget to take your rubbish home on the beach. There's nothing worse than going onto a beach and finding rubbish from another angler. Return the bass and really, really enjoy it. It is fantastic. That's the set of flies. I will be sending those out to some lucky winner, whoever has shared the stream or commented on the stream. Tonight we'll get that set of bass flies. A couple of gurglers in there, a couple of nice fry patterns, different colours and stuff like that. I'll let you know on that on Monday or Tuesday when I get around to it. But thanks for watching, folks. As usual, if you need any fly tying, fly fishing gear, do check out www.piscarifly.com, or feel free to give us a shout or call into us anytime here on Piscari Fly if you're getting ready for the 2023 season. We will be back next Saturday night live. We will also be next Sunday, if anyone's interested, next Sunday up in North Kildare, anglers are hosting an open evening, a social evening, which is a trade show kind of fly tying exhibition. Myself, I'll be there tying. We'll have a good bit of the shop up there as well. Jimmy Tyrrell from Irish Flycraft will be tying. Pat Nolan will be there. Eamon Conway will be there. And a few other special guests. So make sure you come along. It's in Sarsfield's GA Club. It starts at 3 o'clock next Sunday afternoon. And it is free. So if anybody's looking for something to do next Sunday, it's kids and all, free food, the whole lot there, folks. There'll be nice raffles and stuff like that. Pop on up, say hello. We'll be tying some flies there next Sunday. But I will be back next Saturday night. I'll remind you, folks, have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I will see you all next Saturday night. Thanks for watching, everybody.